Yeah. Let's get the party started.
Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat. Blah, blah. Welcome to the Rugby Chat, episode 52. And yes, it's live, as you can tell, unedited, with my lovely start there. So, hello, hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. And joining me this evening is Herman and Ashwin. And, we've got those normal problems here where we're running up short and you on screen. That doesn't matter. We can still probably hear Ashwin. Hey, Herman, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Paul. How are you?
Very good, sir. Very good. Just a bit nervous of having technical issues now that I'm not my own.
Yeah.
Other people in, but hey, that's
so
the
far,
only thing.
But so far you can hear me at least.
I can hear you, but can we hear Ashwin?
No,
we can't.
He's just fucked.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, he's just...
Because you can't see you. But anyway.
You can't see me.
No.
Oh, I saw him, and I
So that's okay.
effing with you.
He's messing with me, is he? Oh, dearie me. Jeez. And here I am, Mr. Stress Bunny, and you're doing that to me. This was a bit thrown together at the last minute today. But hey, Hugh, great to have you here. Jack and Christian and everyone else who is watching live. Please feel free to whack in any questions you have. And obviously, if you use the $sign if you're watching on YouTube, if you use that $sign for super chat, then we will definitely talk about your comments. So, first up, let's kick off with how about some refereeing controversy, because that's always a fun one to start off with. Sergio Parisi, obviously a dirty player who deserves to get red carded for bashing someone in the head with his shoulder. Have you seen this one, Herman?
Yes, I have, and was it Ed Quirk in the Sunwolves to have the softest red card earlier this year, but I think we have a new winner here. This is it's.
To be fair, it's not soft on the player, is it? Let's be honest. That was a hefty contact.
Well, but I would say it's a defender who comes like running 30 meters to bash Parisi, and he puts up his arm, and basically the defender just runs straight into his arm.
Well, no, to be fair, he didn't even put up his arm. He braced and pushed forward. Now, in ultra slow-mo, he pushes forward and goes slightly up, which is what I guess they can they've chosen on. But in real time, he just braces. The other guy runs into him and bangs his head against his shoulder. And yeah, if you're going to headbutt someone's shoulder at pace, the size of Sergio Parisi, you're going to get hurt. Basically. Christian's asking what game. So this would have been Stade Francais playing Perpignan?
Perpignan.
Yeah.
Perpignan, wait.
So yes.
But
so top 14. Ashwin, did you see this one?
Yeah, I did. I saw the event as well. And it's just like, that's not a red card. That's nothing. Play on.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. No, it's stop play because there's a player down injured, clearly hurt.
Oh, sure.
Restart
with scrum. Attacking ball.
But yeah, Sergio Parisi didn't do anything wrong. He caught the ball, he jumped in the air to catch the ball, landed, saw a player about to tackle him, braced himself, and moved forward like he was supposed to into a tackle. The other guy though got his positioning all wrong, went high, and basically headbutted Sergio's shoulder. And collapsed in a heap.
Actually, that's a good way to put it. He's actually headbutted Sergio's shoulder.
And I think there's been outrage across Twitterdom about this, and we'll see. I can't expect Sergio to get any. Timeout gone.
You said outrage across Twitterdom.
Yes,
Twitterdom's just about outrage, isn't it? It's just about everybody being offended. All you get on Twitter for is to get offended. I'm offended that you made a comment about Twitter.
But in this case, I think everyone's on one side of the offence. That just sounds all wrong. Anyway, everyone seemed to have the same opinion that this was not a red card. So hopefully he doesn't get banned as part of his citing, but we'll see how it all goes on from here.
Yep. Maybe it's not good taste to make a joke, but that Perpignan player have taken a leaf out of Ryan Crotty's playbook. It seems.
Ooh.
Just bash your head into.
It can't be a joke and bad taste if it's fact.
True. True.
But okay. So those of you who have seen, and I do hope she's not watching, Ryan Crotty's sister on Twitter. Yes, she clearly. Obviously, being a family member, she's obviously very protective and wants her brother to maintain his mental capacity during his post-game years. But yeah, I think a lot of people would be more than happy to see Crotty basically put on the sidelines until the next Super Rugby season. By the sounds of it, they're talking about him coming back in for being back in selection, a selection option for next weekend against Argentina. But to me, I'd say I think a lot of people would be very happy for him just to take the rest of the season off and come back in the Super Rugby season next year. So, yeah.
Or you just go play Japanese rugby.
No, that's the whole point. Is he doesn't play any rugby, he doesn't get any more knocks. This is the. Dear me. Arch, we're missing the point yet again. So there we go. But I do feel it might be time to unleash the Herman and let him have a good old rant and talk about the Rugby Championship. What a great schedule we have.
Well, no, we don't. I mean, I think it's absolutely terrible. This is the 7th year in a row. It's played exactly with the same schedule. It's always start with the Bledisos back and forth, and always Argentina, always go to South Africa. And if you start looking how we're traveling, it seems Wallabies has actually by far the best traveling schedule. But then you can discuss if it's so smart to always start against the All Blacks home and away, but because they always seem to get hammered and. The chances of winning the championship is over after 2 rounds. But for me, the big one is actually that Argentina and South Africa are getting a very raw deal here. But they always are the ones who have to travel in round 3 and 4. Why on earth hasn't Sansar just for once thought that maybe we should make Wallabies and All Blacks do the traveling in round 3 and 4? Maybe. Would be a little bit more fair. And also, it actually would be a little bit more exciting too. I don't know any other competition in the world in any sport to use the same schedule year after year after year after year. There isn't one.
Maybe the Cambridge Oxford boat race, but yeah, that's only one fixture.
Well, so I just want to be clear. This is not. I'm not coming down on like the All Blacks getting a free advance, blah blah blah. This is just like. If you're a proper administrator of a competition, I mean, this is A1, this is the first, you change the schedule every year. There is a reason why every other competition in the world are doing this.
It stops it from getting stale, and as we say again, it is also heavily weighted against South Africa and Argentina. I mean, Argentina have to travel to South Africa, back to Argentina, then to New Zealand, Australia, and then finally they get to the last 2 games at home when they're already knackered. Whereas New Zealand basically travels to Australia, which is basically what rich Kiwis do for the weekend anyway. Go to Sydney and do some shopping, come back again, play 3 games at home, and then go play in Argentina and South Africa. So yeah, that block of basically 4 games without travelling, whereas Argentina don't only have 2 games without travelling, and they're at the end of the schedule. I think this probably shows the bargaining power of the different sides and how New Zealand consistently bargain for their own advantage.
Well, it's not that simple actually. Actually, the big culprit here is actually Rugby Australia and their own old CAO John O'Neill. He is the one who negotiated that the Rugby Championship always have to start with a Bledisloe test. And I think that will be finished when this next broadcasting deal finish. So that had been like set in stone. So that's what the Kiwis are hiding behind. But also the Kiwis were probably not like completely stupid and realized, well, we're not going to complain about that schedule if everyone else is okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the yeah. You say New Zealand saw the opportunity and just decided to we'll definitely back him on that one. Ashwin, any thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, I was actually I'm going to show a bit of naivety here, because my understanding was, or maybe until recently at least anyway, was the fact that it used to alternate between starting in New Zealand starting over in South Australia starting over here and then starting over there. Maybe that changed when Argentina came into the mix.
Yes.
Yeah, because I definitely remember, where Rugby Championship, we'd go play, 1 year it's the first game against South Africa over here, and the next year it's actually starting over in South Africa, sort of thing. So, I wasn't aware of that happening.
Well, but it's fine because, this deal with the Bledisloe in Sydney, that's signed and we can't change that. But they could still mix it around in round 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
Well, no, Herman. Next year the Bledisloe, which in Australia is in Perth.
Yeah. So that's,
Well, also next year it will be a truncated Rugby Championship, I assume, because of the Rugby World Cup anyway. So this should be the last time we have this schedule for it. So yes, I think this will be the last time.
But if I may say, this could be a good segue, because another topic we're coming up later. Now we can sneak into. What are your guys post 2020? How would you like to see? There will be changes to Super Rugby, and we're going to talk about that later. But what changes would you like to see to the Rugby Championship? Anything in the amount of games? Should it be expanded? Any ideas? Do you have any ideas? What would you like to?
No, I'll go on that first if you like. You just can't expand the competition at the moment because it's actually going downhill. Now, I'm not worrying about crowd numbers or viewing figures or anything like that. I'm just talking about the quality of the games, etc. It's not, as an All Blacks fan, great. I go along to Eden Park and I relax because, I'm not too nervous about the result. There's a chance that we might get tripped up, but it's slim. As I said to my Australian work colleagues, there's a chance Australia might win, but would you put your house on it? So, I'm not worried about it, but I think the quality of it, there's been, I've forgotten which Facebook feed it is. I think it might be Rugby Fanatics page. And obviously there's a lot of Northern Hemisphere fans on there, and they're going, I don't know why you guys going about the Rugby Championship so much. Six Nations is way better. And you have to agree, the Six Nation is way better competition. That's not it's funny, some dumb people, I was going to say dumb asses, but I won't say dumb people, try to argue the point that the Rugby Championship is a good competition. It's not a good competition. You've got...
Historically, it's had the 3 of the top 4 or top 5 best teams in the world in it, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good competition. There's a difference between having the best teams and having a good competition.
Well, but back then, Springboks and the Wallabies actually beat the All Blacks from time to time.
Yeah. And it was, for a neutral perspective, it was great. But now, So just to finish off, you couldn't expand it at the moment in the condition it's in. You have to make sure it improves before you expand.
We need the dollars. Bring in Japan.
I call too.
Yeah, but you're just going to, it'll be detrimental. It'll be chasing the dollar for what benefit, what value.
Well, you can keep all your All Blacks players in New Zealand. Japan brings big money.
Oh, absolutely.
And with the World Cup now next year and so, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity there's a fair chance that rugby will boom in Japan. And if Sansar is not on that train and try to involve Japan more, they would be very stupid.
Yeah, Japan's got to come in, and then you put a Fiji side into Super Rugby, and you think about them the next time round whether you expand. And basically, and Jack's saying don't know, don't bring in Japan. But I think Japan would have a very good shout at beating Argentina, for example.
Springboks at home too.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, touche. Sorry, Brent. Sorry, Andre.
I mean, there's lots of comments in the chat saying, no expansion, don't bring in Japan, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, personally, no, I think that's where we're going to go.
I'm not saying that expansion, you close the door or you lock the door on expansion. It's just the fact is that you have to sort out this competition in terms of quality first before you do that. You got to reality check. You bring in Japan, they're going to get smashed for how long before they get a quality team to be able to be competitive?
No, I don't think that far.
I don't know. Not convinced.
No, I mean, the chances for Japan going to try. We are measuring should be. There has to be more parameters where we're judging the tournament from.
And I do think they will be competitive with Argentina. I think they will be at that level. So I don't think they.
Okay.
So I think you can bring them in.
If they're going to be competitive with Argentina, they'll be competitive with South Africa too.
Well,
no, but
only at home.
Japan is definitely going backwards at the moment. Isn't that far-fetched that they will at least be competitive in a couple of years?
No, I totally agree. So that's where I think we'll see the Rugby Championship going. Definitely.
An interest you were touching it there, Paul. What could be really interesting if you could see in the future that you can add Japan and also add Fiji, is that all of a sudden when you have six teams and then all of a sudden you can straight up, which is a very proven concept. That's clear competition. I mean, most likely all back. Might lose the first game, and then all the interesting, but because when you're having these double headers, even if it's no panic bottom at all,
And I'm afraid we are having some technical issues, and we're going to basically throw away this technical setup and have it differently when I've got two guys on going forwards. I'm sorry, folks. I've tried reloading all the pieces of software, and this is just this is just a disaster. So, but the other thing I wanted to talk about on the schedule was that one of the people talking to or listening to Green and Gold Rugby. One of the big problems in Australia is that you keep is having the story of the season, and that basically you end up having weekends where there are no home Super Rugby games to show on TV. You have the Wallabies will play a couple of games, have a week off, play another couple of games within time zone, have a couple of weeks off, and then just disappear and play in the middle of the night. And so it's not just the Rugby Championship schedule that needs to be changed, but we also need to look at the Super Rugby schedule, and not just from a how it works sort of between the different conferences and all that kind of stuff, but also look at how do we actually tell a story during the season, because that's content now is all about storytelling. And for those of you that don't know, if you become a Patreon, I've done a number of interviews that you can get early access to through that. So I've talked to a couple of players from Manawatu. There's 2 interviews for there. I've talked to Seta Manavalu And I've also talked to a number of people behind the scenes at Taranaki. Now, the last video of those, I've actually decided to scrap because I forgot to ask 2 questions that basically ask the story behind the person. And we've got to start thinking about the schedule as the season as a story. And these big gaps that the Australian viewers are getting really does hurt them. Anyone else want to comment on that story, the storytelling?
Can you hear me or not?
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah, I get so. Okay, that's me out again. No, you. Just a quick reconnect to what we're talking. Having Japan in game in every week in the Rugby Championship in the time zone, New Zealand, Australia.
Yeah, you're right. It would help with that time zone as well, that it's in there. And I think the Sunwolves games maybe need to be more sympathetically timed for the Australian audience as well, and try and if the make sure there's an Australian team playing in time zone every week. So you don't have all your teams heading off to South Africa and always have a Friday night game, always have a Saturday night game. And if one of those happens to be in Tokyo, that's fine. But at least have an Australian team playing on Friday night and Saturday night every week of the season. So there's something for people to watch.
How fair it is because
I'm kidding.
And yeah, no, we've lost him again, unfortunately. We won't be using this technology next time. We'll be going back to Google Hangouts next time, which means, sorry, we won't be live on Facebook and Periscope. We will be just live on YouTube. And I don't think it's your setup, Herman. I don't know why it's happening, because it's not crackling like it did before. Talking Australia and the lack of sort of interest and things. Arshim, what do you think about this talk about Checker on the way out and having the full trust of the board?
I can't see. I'm getting lost for words here. Really, Checker. They got to keep him. Basically, they're not far away. They've got a mental issue against the All Blacks, and it's really obvious. And I think that goes to some way in terms of the way that they implement the game plan as well. You look at they have got some issues within the squad which they need to investigate as to what the problem is. Their key issue there is the Hooper and Pocock scenario. Those two are world class. They're very good players. And you know, the effort that they put out on the field every time they play an international match in particular is an amazing effort. But for some reason, they can't get the rest of their forward pack to follow them. And the example you give is obviously like a Richie McCaw, where, Richie McCaw playing at a fantastic level, and his men would walk over broken glass to follow him to make sure they're behind him and supporting him. That isn't there in the Australian forward pack. And it's strange when you look at the caliber of individuals that Michael Hooper and David Pocock are, that why won't they do that? Why aren't they putting in the same amount of effort that Pocock and Hooper, and in particular Pocock, who really puts his body on the line, why aren't they actually following? So that's the thing that they need to look at within the forwards. If they can overcome that and say, take inspiration from the Pocock and Hooper and get that forward pack to put the output out that those two do, maybe not to the level, obviously they're super players, that'll be a marked improvement in their forward pack. Then you go to their back line, and their back line on the weekend,
on that forward pack thing, I also think that it's not just an element that the other players not stepping up and being dragged into a better level. Having those two causes you line-out problems, because you then have to pick a line out six. You can't pick that six has to be tall enough. So you've got three options at the line out, because neither Pocock nor Hooper can do that. Whereas with the way that New Zealand plays, the number 8 is generally, it has well, it's definitely in Reed's era, has been a line option for the play.
Yeah, but then, they lost a couple of lineouts on the weekend at Eden Park. They didn't lose the amount that they did in Sydney. So I think it can be overcome. And Lachlan Tui seems to be, an international quality player. He obviously will get more comfortable and better at that level as the more games he plays there. So I think in three forwards to do your line-out work is enough. It's the fact is that there needs to be more output from the other 6 members of the forward pack and around the field. The line-out aside, the rest of their work around the field is not high enough. The output of their work is not high enough.
Herman, are you back?
I don't know. You tell me. Yeah. I'm sitting here. How deep should we? I'm not in complete agreement with you here, Ash. I think it's for me, it's much more a structural problem, both on and off the pitch. But let's start on the pitch. From what I can see, where all of these play this weekend, they are losing their shape, like in inexcusable ways, a couple of times, and the All Blacks punish them every single time. But what I see is there are a few guys who are just bumbling around, rushing up, and they obviously have no idea where the co-players are around them. They're just rushing up by themselves. And I would say Michael Hooper is one of the main suspects doing this, but I also thought Tui was doing this a fair bit too. I mean, he carried well on offense. He looks a real deal there, but on defense, I was not impressed at all with him, to be fair. So, I mean, Paul do have a point, but you can fix the line, especially on your own front. You can work it out with 3 forwards, or with only 3 lineouts options. And to be fair, also, Rodda looks good also on the All Blacks throw. They stole a couple again.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I've been impressed. I think Rodda's had a decent couple of games. And I'm just saying it means your 6 has to be a line-out option when you play.
Yep.
You can't have a real heavy runner, kind of Billy Vunipola-esque in that time in that third back row position, because he has to be liftable. And Billy Vunipola, for all his wonderful play running with the ball, is not a line-out option. So it does restrict your combinations as to who that third person can be. Is all I'm trying to say.
So,
there was an interesting. Sorry, just before you did, there is an interesting video done by 1014 that came out yesterday, and they look at the average number of the number of caps per player for the last Rugby Championship games, and one of the things that jumps out at you about the Australian one, and even more so actually about South Africa, is just how you either have guys there who have got 70 plus caps, 70 to 100 caps, or they've got 10. And I think that's the problem, is that you've got they've got this real mix of very experienced and totally inexperienced players, and they don't have those 30 odd cap people in the middle there that help sort of keep even things out.
Yeah, absolutely. Experience counts for a lot, and you can't account for that, basically, or it's very hard to account for that. Just going back to what Herman said, I absolutely agree with what you said, but all those comments that you make, those are things that you can fix. Those are things that you can fix with attitude as well. So attitude as well as game plan. Making sure that you, like a Hooper or Tui, don't rush up in defence, or they know that's a trust issue in the team with your teammates as well. And the fact is, defence is all about trust. trusting that the man outside you is going to take his man so that you don't drift off your man type scenario. So there's trust issues, but I think a lot of the issues that they've got are resolvable. But for my mind, biggest thing is that they need to put they've really got to put more empty the tank more. Basically, you look at what you want your players to be at the end of the game is so exhausted, like a David Pocock. Then you know that they've emptied the tank. If they can go and have a laugh with their opposition, have they really emptied the tank?
Well, they did empty the tank in the first test during the first half, and that was a problem.
You can say that they did that in the second test too, actually.
Wasn't Pocock...
Say that again, Herman?
Oh, I lost again. No.
You're back in there, quick.
But Arsene, you wanted to say something about the backs?
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of the backs, again, it's just an adjustment of game plan, right? And the fact is that you've got Corabetti on the wing, who is obviously faster than any All Black back on that field. I'll say that confidently. He was a good 5 meters away from the wing in his defensive position with Waisaki Naholo on the outside. The All Blacks making good progress, throw it out to Naholo, and Corabetti, who's in field, turns, chases, and tackles him, right? So he's got genuine pace, and they just aren't making enough space and giving him the ball in attack to take advantage of that pace. It was nuts. It honestly is. You've got the strike power on that wing, and you've got to use him. You've got to bring him into the game. You've got to manufacture something to give him opportunities. And then you look at Halepeti at the back. His performance was far better than anything we've seen from Israel Folau in the last wee while. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that Israel Folau's a crap player. He is not a crap player, but the energy and effort that Halepeti brought into that team on the weekend was notches above Folau. Folau goes along, does his aerial take of the ball, looks fantastic, etc. And everybody goes, whoa, what a great player, yeah. And it's just like, yes, he is. He's got to do more then. He's got to achieve more. He's got to put more effort in. Again, if you've got that skill, you've got that ability, you've got to be the leader on that field and use that skill that you've got. And he doesn't. And you look at Dane Halepeti comes in, and he put in, the cliche 110%. I thought he created opportunities for the Aussies. They weren't good enough to finish off the opportunities that he made. But to me, he's an automatic selection for the next game. And they find out where they fit Folau in. And that gives them the kick up the bum to sort of put in a better effort next time.
Yeah, Dane Halepeti is a better all-round footballer than Folau. Folau is fantastic at certain things, but as an all-round footballer, you've got to say, Dane Halepeti's better at that. And I'd like to see him stay at fullback and put Folau on the wing, where we've seen against the Rebels, the Waratahs used him to great effect and basically turned the game by having him on that right wing. So I don't see why they can't do that again.
Agree. I think you can hear me now, eh? Yeah.
I nod when I can hear
you. But we're still talking about Australia and Shika.
Well, the whole team, but yes.
Yeah. But I want to twist it a little bit. I mean, because there have been some apologists about Shika, but come on, don't compare him with what his run is against the All Blacks. This is one of the vintage All Blacks, which is true. He got a rough deal, but he got to play with All Blacks 3 times every year. But if we look at his stats against the other teams, that's when it gets really interesting. I mean, since Shika took over, he had played England 7 times, 1 win, 6 losses. He had played Ireland 5 times, 1 win, 4 losses. He had played Scotland 4 times, 2 wins, 2 losses. He played France 2 times, 1 win, 1 losses. These are not, I mean, it's pretty fair that we're ranked 6 in the world now. Is it 6 or 5 or 7? They're not the top 3 side anymore.
The Springboks are 7, so that's their lowest ranking ever. And Australia above them. But I think Australia perhaps have been a little bit unlucky in the timing of playing those teams. England arrived in their pomp and had 3 good games. If they'd got the England side that played South Africa the following year, 12 months later, I think they would have lost. They would have done better and probably maybe won it 2-0. 2-1.
That's too much what if. Come on, you got to play what's in front of you.
You do have to play what's in front of you. Yes, I'm just saying that perhaps the schedule hasn't been as been harsh, and that's all.
Well, but the point is, I'm babbling with stats, is that during the professional era, Shika is the worst performing Wallabies coach. That's just facts.
If you use percentage wins, yes. If you use how well has he done at Rugby World Cups, that's not so bad.
Yeah, he did. That's probably looking more and more like that's maybe a curse to Australia. Maybe that's the worst thing ever that we got that penalty in Scotland, because that probably,
there's going to be
like papered over a few cracks that we have been seeing non-stop since after the World Cup.
Yeah, basically Scotland were a bit ripped in that one. But
everyone says about
that's rugby. It happens.
If you look at that in real time, that's a good call in my book. It's only when you slow it down.
You, Paul, you're English. You have no whatsoever saying about Scottish rugby. Come on, you're disqualified 100%.
Freedom!
Forget about it. Yeah, exactly. You agree with me on this one, Ashwin, huh?
Yeah, totally.
North again.
Watching that in real time, I thought,
that's a no-go. That's a no. No, but it's here. But because if you look, I think since after the World Cup, the Wallabies have played 34 test games, and they have won 14 and lost 20. No, we are lost 18 and 2 draws.
Yeah, it's not. It's been a bad record.
So they're down at 41%, something like that. 38. It's not good.
No.
Who do they replace him with if they replace him, though? Who's there?
That's the problem. I mean, but I've been involved in a few discussions about this, and you have what we don't know, but there are a fair few coaches at regional and club level that have clauses in the contracts that they can break them if they get an offer from a Tier 1 nation head coaching job. But I have no idea whom, but they are. But other ones say, but don't change the coach 1 year before the World Cup, But this was exactly what Australia did the last time they worked for them.
I think Vessels at the Rebels is the next guy, and he comes
in. But he has 0 experience. He had 2 seasons of Super Rugby.
And that's why
haven't even reached the playoffs yet. I mean, come on. I mean, it's not even close to be ready for test level.
After a World Cup is when I think he'll come in, and I think he's the guy that's going to get it.
You really think? If that happens, I don't think it's ready at all. I mean, I think that's actually one of the if I'm looking for reasons for the Australia's decline in rugby, I think there are two very glaring things for me. The first one is look at the results in the under 20s. I think Australia hasn't been in the semis for 7 or 8 years now.
Yep.
To be a top, we can't expect them to be a top 3 side. I mean, if you're under 20s, never reach the semis. I mean, I think it's even more obvious. I mean, that's not from the top shelves at all. And fix those two, and I think they will not count. Will be way closer.
So obviously highlights an issue with player depth, which everybody knows. If they can't get success at under 20s level or look good at under 20s level, you're gonna. It's a player depth issue, and that's a difficult one because they've really. I mean, for them over there, it's a totally different story to what we've got here in New Zealand. They've got to be a successful sport for young children to grow up wanting to play rugby, to be Wallabies. If they haven't got a successful team, you got the kids, they'll look at AFL, they look at soccer, they'll look at league. they've got all these other sports to look at, and that's where they're going to look. So it's really a chicken and egg type scenario for them.
And we have Jack's trying to get rid of the next All Blacks coach by saying that Ian Foster could coach the Aussies, and I can see why he's saying that. But that's that's not a serious suggestion by any stretch of the imagination.
I'd be happy with Ian Foster coaching Australia.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. It's similar. It's similar to Welsh fans saying they'd be happy for Rob Howley to go off and coach England.
I don't know. I don't know if you really want to change that English coaching setup at the moment. And I think it's been a great boost to add John Mitchell to it too.
That is a disaster, an absolute unmitigated disaster. That is, everything there is lining up to just go absolutely Pete Tong. Yeah, kaboom. Yeah, I just can't see Mitchell being happy not being number one. I don't see how that's going to work. Anyway,
I'm back too.
You're back now.
No, with Ashton
and gone.
You're giving me you nod and shake.
If we didn't laugh, we would cry.
Oh, well, yes. I'm going to go.
So we'll just keep laughing.
Where are we now? What have we got left on the list here? Oh yeah, Arswin, is this the worst box side ever?
I don't know. To tell you the truth, it's really hard for me to say yes or no, because the fact is that I just haven't been watching the games. I watch highlights packages, etc. on it. Yeah, so it's hard to say. And the fact is that the rules that Alistair Coetzee had the rules that Rassie Erasmus has, that he has to pick his side around, the impact that has. And the other thing is that like come World Cup time, and he's next year or whenever it is, that he can start picking players out of Europe, whoever he wants to. That could be a totally different kettle of fish, couldn't it? But they have got one issue, and that's first five. They've got to find the first five that can play the game.
They do. Some people are asking why Mitchell in the chat. That's because Mitchell has been hired as the England defence coach to replace, I've gone blank. It's the guy who's gone and become head coach of Harlequins. Begins with a G. Anyway, so that's why we're talking about that. Mitchell is here you go. This is what for me is that, look, last weekend we're saying how wonderful, or in South Africa they're saying how wonderful the Boks are, and that they've beaten Argentina at home. Pocock and Pollard's this fantastic player, and then the following week they're like, oh, he's the worst fly half since we've ever had since sliced bread. We have no fly halves. Put in Willemse. Now look, Willems had a wonderful Super Rugby season with the Storm. It was much better than I was expecting, but his introduction to that first test, he came on and made a whole bunch of mistakes. He is way, way, way too green for Test rugby. So don't think he's the answer. Is it as bad as people are making out at the moment? No. Was it as good as everyone was making it out last week? No. As I said in that 10-14 video, you've got the Beast on 100 odd caps, and then you've got a couple of other peaks around the place, and all the rest of the guys are just basically green international players. That's your problem. They're going to be inconsistent until they get experience.
But is that part of the issue? The fact that something you've just raised, the Beast has played 100 games. The Beast is a myth. He's an overrated prop. Oh, he might look good against substandard opposition, but when he comes up against the All Blacks, he does nothing. He goes backwards at a rate of knots, if anything. even at Super Rugby level, when he plays a good Super Rugby side, he's actually not that good. And if that's their first choice pick in this box scrum, they've got issues. And that's their most experienced player.
And we'll be putting Ashwin into police custody after this, and he'll be going into hiding.
No more Brian Andres for me. He's pulled no punches today. He's told Israel what he needs to do. He's telling everybody that the beast is mud.
Yeah, but the question is this the worst Springbok side ever?
Yep, that's the question.
Well,
yes, it is. Yes, it is, to put it very simply. And it's a perfect storm. I mean, the Super Rugby sides are underperforming. We have a quotas that doesn't help, and we have way too many players in Europe, and we are bankrupt. I mean, what else? South African rugby is a complete mess.
That's all the bullet points. Absolutely, and it's shown by the fact that they're now number 7, their worst ranking they've ever had.
And South Africa probably even more than Australia. It doesn't help them because South Africa, they compare themselves to New Zealand when it comes to rugby. That's like because it used to be New Zealand and South Africa. We were number 1 and number 2, and for them, like, anything until they can beat New Zealand again is not good enough, which creates an extremely negative environment for rugby in South Africa also. Because they're not going to beat the All Blacks. I mean, they might get the one lucky win. I mean, but if they can beat the All Blacks twice in the next 10 years, I don't give them any more chances. Every 5 years, they can get a win.
So there we go. That's it is the worst thing. And we are coming towards the end of our hour. So tomorrow night on the All Blacks edition, what we are going to be talking about, because Ashwin sort of touched on it tonight, was the what he thinks makes New Zealand so good and we're going to run through. We're going to say, why is New Zealand so good at rugby? And I have a brand new theory about this. So log in tomorrow night to find out what that is. Because I've got a brand new theory that will add into the list of why New Zealand is the best side in the world and why they continue to be so. We'll also talk about it.
And 2 more subjects for tomorrow. We're also going to talk: should the government help New Zealand?
The government should
help the All Blacks rugby,
but they should be playing All Blacks.
No. But should we give them extra money or tax reduction for All Blacks players? We're going to talk about that, and also we're going to look at the contract situation for all the All Blacks players in New Zealand right now. To put it mildly, I mean, there are 12 players with All Black caps. I mean, there are 4 or 5 of the starters that have contract after the World Cup. So NCR has a lot of work to do with contracting the next year.
What time, Pack asks? 8 p.m. New Zealand time, so the same time as this show will be on for the All Blacks edition.
You're supposed to go same bet time, same bet channel.
What is he on about?
You're too young.
When we do cultural references, we like the cultural references to be within the last decade. Not 50 years ago. If it was in black and white, Ashwin, it doesn't count as a cultural reference.
It was only black and white for me because we couldn't afford a colour TV.
Oh.
But you get like colour TV really late in New Zealand? When did you get colour TV in New Zealand?
Remember, New Zealand's about 20 years behind everywhere else. Especially
I know.
74,
I mean,
something like that.
Really? You got it very early in New Zealand?
You never even saw a black and white TV.
So, yes.
See, Alex got it. Park 2 got it.
Did they? They can... Anyway. Any games you're looking forward to this weekend? When the Rugby Championship is away?
Well, the Bristol Bears start Aviva Gallagher Premiership at home against Bath. I mean, Bristol Bears will Piotau is injured, but we have Lua Tua, and we have George Smith, and I think there is a couple other Kiwis there too. Pat Lam on the coaching bench. Should be good to see them. We're back.
It's going to be really interesting.
Apparently a sold out venue, so we're going to be like up to 25,000 people.
It's going to be really interesting to see whether they can put together a competitive side, because teams going up have really struggled. Let's be honest, in the past. If you are interested in Bristol Bears, be careful about which website you go to when you're searching, because some website around that
unless you like boys, unless you like really big and hairy boys.
I would say just
thin line between rugby and big hairy boys. I know.
I'm just saying. I think I'm going to stick with my Batman references. Just saying.
Yeah.
Now,
and you let
suitable for work is what I would say. Arsene, any games jumping up at you?
Well, actually, I was going to say the obvious, and then Jack's just mentioned Harbour Tasman in the old chat room. So yeah, that's probably the if you're a neutral, you got to say that's probably a pick of the games this weekend, because they're the two top sort of at the top of the table for the Premiership. But I'll be trundling along to Eden Park on Thursday night to see Auckland take on Waikato, a game that if they really are sort of on the upward sort of curve, they should clean up Waikato at home.
What, because Waikato have lost their opening two games and Auckland have won their opening two games?
Oh, no. The fact is that, I mean, like when you look at the players that Waikato actually have at their disposal, they'll probably have Triple T back, possibly playing for them, but, they've lost a lot of...
He's not back. He's not back. Even me, who doesn't follow, but I follow the All Blacks, he wasn't sent back, Triple T. They want to save...
No, I saw it, because I saw it on the weekend, I think Sunday, there was a list that had him.
They sent TJ, but that was only Scrum Huffer sent back. They sent TJ back to play with Wellington. But Triple T, surprisingly, they kept him in camp.
No, okay. There you go.
So,
I read something on the Sunday, which was obviously early in the piece, saying that he'd be released. But no, just coming back to it, it's a game that they have to dominate, and they have to show that they're got the improvements. Otherwise, the old voices in the head come back from last year.
Yeah, I'll be doing my Mitre 10 Cup predictions straight after this show, but I'm going to disagree with you guys, actually. I think the Bay of Plenty versus Canterbury is the game of the weekend. Bay of Plenty have beaten two Premiership teams already this season in the form of Taranaki at home and Counties away. So can they continue that against Canterbury, who obviously reigning champions and got a good win over Wellington last weekend? I get why you say North Harbour Tasman, but North Harbour have had two 1-point wins over championship teams, over Northland and Waikato. 1-point wins. If they're going to take on Tasman,
they are sweet.
Yeah, look, I mean, early days, but you look at Tasman and Taranaki as being the two form teams. I know Taranaki dropped that one to Bay of Plenty. But the reality is that when you look at the players they've got in that team, the squad that they've got together, that is a very good looking squad. They shouldn't have dropped the game to Bay of Plenty, but these things happen.
Yeah, Bay of Plenty are definitely looking like the form team in the championship this season. So Christian's asking, why is their game on Wednesday night? So, okay. Every team has to play two games in one round during the season. It's what the teams call Storm Week. So if you've been listening to my interviews with the coaches, you'll have heard the term Storm Week referred to. And Storm Week is when they play two games in one round. So Taranaki and Counties will play on Wednesday and on Sunday. So they'll play two games this weekend. So clearly that stretches their playing resources for this weekend. Every team has to do it at some point. And one of the points that Tom Coventry made after the Waikato win was that they actually had this in the early part of the season. They've got they have very few games, or they've got a good gaps between their games, and then suddenly They have a lot of games altogether. So that's part of the season that sort of makes it a bit more interesting in the Mitre 10 Cup. So yeah, the first 2 rounds weren't storm weeks for anybody, but from week 3 onwards, that happens. So that's why counties are playing Taranaki on Wednesday night. Cool. Thank you. Other things, because obviously we talked about the Gallagher Premiership is kicking off this weekend. The Pro 14 will do as well. And the Top 14 kicked off last weekend. So European rugby really getting into the swing of things right now as well. So we're now into perhaps the period of the season or the year where we have the most rugby going on. It's getting a little bit crazy. So yeah, thank you everybody. Thank you very much, Herman, for joining me.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you very much, Ashwin.
No worries. And we always fun and always good.
And as I say, yeah, join us tomorrow night for the All Blacks edition. And then on Thursday evening, if I'm not working, I'll try and do an Aviva Premiership preview where we run through all the teams and talk about that kind of stuff. So Ashwin will be itching to get on that show.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just responding now.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.